Hello again, everybody. This is Jay. Happy Saturday. Happy UFC 197 Day. And happy return to the King Day. The valiant return of Mr. Johnny Bones Jones after about a little over a year off. Probably most excited about getting to see him fight. It's not the fight we all wanted to see, but we get to at least see the King fight. And you can't really question magic when you see it happen. But at any rate, we've got 3 fights tonight that'll be wrapping up our main card for UFC 197, and that's what I want to talk about. Just a quick little video of kind of predictions, kind of just my opinion of the fights. We've got Anthony Pettis versus Edson Barboza as the third to last fight. This fight, I think, is going to be super exciting. It's obviously going to be a standing fight. It's going to be a lot of kicks. It's going to be very fast-paced. But to be honest, I mean, they're calling it a must-win situation for both fighters. If I'm Edson Barboza, I'm not going to stand up and strike with Anthony Pettis. And it's not because for 1 second that I believe that Edson Barboza doesn't have the mettle as a striker to stand with Anthony Pettis, but it's because of how we saw Anthony Pettis get destroyed by Eddie Alvarez and Rafael dos Anjos. Just took him to the ground and just shredded him up, just grinded him away until he lost the fight. Now, Anthony Pettis has spent some time in Greg Jackson and Winkeljohn's gym, training with some of the best fighters on the planet, who have some of the greatest takedown defense on the planet. Just take a look at like Holly Holm or John Jones. I mean, John Jones has above a 90% takedown defense rating. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out, especially since he's moved to the idea of making it a permanent fixture in his training camps, splitting part of his time with Rufus Sport and Jackson Winkeljohn. But at any rate, it seems like it'd be a non-issue. For later fights in his career, the next fight even, working on his takedown defense and his wrestling would be a huge benefit. But I really don't believe that it's going to matter in this fight. I think that it's just going to be a stand-up war. I don't think it's going to be a finish. I think it'll make its way out to decision. And if I'm really I think it's hard to call. That's just a hard one to call. So I'm gonna say Edson Barboza because he's got the prettiest switch kick I've ever seen. But I'm a huge Pettis fan, so I'll be happy if either one wins, to be completely honest. So moving forward, we've got the co-main event of the evening. We've got Henry Cejudo versus Demetrious Johnson. I am a huge Demetrious Johnson fan. Talk about perfect technique, insanely well-rounded game, and all around a genuinely good dude. That being said, I'm a pretty good fan of Henry Cejudo too. He's a good dude. He's got a lot of good things to say. He was quick to defend Nick Diaz and his whole little debacle. And he's an Olympic gold medalist. He has a lot of proven abilities. But the one thing that I don't see in this fight is him proving that he was necessarily worthy of the fight with Demetrious Johnson. And it's really just going to be because of a technique flaw. Not flaw, but deficit, rather. Henry Cejudo just, like, when it comes to the wrestling, yeah, Henry Cejudo is going to have a much higher level of wrestling than Demetrious Johnson, but we're not talking about a wrestling match. And we're not talking about the kind of wrestling that he competed in. We're talking about mixed martial arts wrestling. It's very different in the way that you have to approach some things. The fact that you have to deal with kicks and punches, and it's not just a pure grappling match. So it's not going to be as simple as his wrestling against Demetrious Johnson's. Now, we've seen in UFC's past that wrestling can be a dominable force against a striker. And whereas Demetrious Johnson is a striker, he is not solely a striker. He is a grappler, a wrestler. He's one of the most well-rounded fighters on the planet. Well, we're dealing with a grappler in Henry Cejudo that has a pretty decent level of boxing, low-level kickboxing, and it's not bad. He's got the footwork, he's got the striking, but he's too slow, and he doesn't have nearly as many tools as Demetrious Johnson. So to try and cut this little segment as short as I can, without going into absolutely every reason why I think Demetrious Johnson is going to take this, which is just about every reason, I think Demetrius Johnson takes it. I don't see it being a finish. I see it going to decision, but I see it being a heavy win for Demetrius Johnson. And then what happens next? You cleaned out the division, son. Moving on, we've got next Ovince St. Preux and Jon Jones. This fight I'm excited for, not because of the matchup, to be completely honest with you, but because they're two of my favorite fighters, and I get to see Jon Jones fight again. It's been a while. This all being said, to borrow a term from a movie, and a little bit from Brendan Schaub, I think we're being honey-dicked by this fight. I think it's fair enough to say that they are building it up to be bigger than it is. Their main focus on why Ovince St. Preux stands a chance against Jon Jones is because of size equality. They're roughly the same height, near the same height, near the same reach, near the same weight. I mean, but that's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. The striking on Ovince St. Preux's part is not on par with Jon Jones. And when we're talking about it, there is still a reach advantage that not too many people are accounting for. They consider 4 inches, 4.5 inches to be an insignificant reach advantage, but it's still going to make a difference. Simple enough. I feel like Jon Jones is going to be able to close the distance easier, land his strikes, and get out of the way a lot faster. I do tend to move more with the idea that sometime in the fight, Jon Jones will actually land his finish. He'll get a takedown and ground and pound his way into a TKO. But to be completely honest, in my heart's heart, I want to see him stand up and knock this man out cold. And it's not because I'm not a fan of Ovince St. Preux or I want to see it happen. I just want to see all this hard work over the last year turn him into an absolute killer. It's the only thing anyone's ever complained about Jon Jones is the fact that he doesn't have knockout power. Well, what are you going to do when he has knockout power? So I guess just to wrap everything up, I wish Ovince St. Preux didn't have to fight Jon Jones. In my heart of hearts, I want Jon Jones and Ovince St. Preux training together. And I want them to flip a coin for who gets light heavyweight and who gets the heavyweight division. But my dream team stable of fighters is a different story altogether. Maybe I'll record a video about that. So quick rundown again. I feel Edson Barboza might edge out Anthony Pettis in the striking, and I feel that solely because of how beautiful his switch kick is, how fast his kicks are. Just really not based in much, to be completely honest with you. The fight with Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson, I feel, is going to be a landslide victory for Demetrius Johnson, but I do feel like it's going to make it all the way up to decision. As far as the Ovince St. Preux and Jon Jones fight, I wouldn't quite call it a tune-up, but I wouldn't quite call it the challenge that they're making it out to be. It's important for Jon Jones to not look past Ovince and see him as a threat, but it's important for us to recognize that he's really not. Not yet. Not that he doesn't have the potential to be.